of higher education, challenges and opportunities. This is a venture jointly organized by the Internal Quality Assurance Cells of Sri Guru Nanak Dev Khalsa College, University of Delhi, Anand Institute of Social Work and the Bhopal School of Social Sciences. This is the fifth webinar that we are jointly organizing. Today we have Dr. Shyam Singh Inda for a virtual session on the topic which I mentioned just a while ago. To introduce Dr. Shyam Singh Inda, he is currently working as an assistant advisor at NAC, and he has also served as a faculty in HRM in two leading universities and was associated with Nationalized Bank and central government. He holds PhD, MHRM, PGD HRM, PGDS DOM, BA Russian with honors in economics, and he has also successfully cleared his UGC NET in HRM. With more than a decade of experience, a background of different services, and 30 acclaimed and published research articles in peer-reviewed and international journals. And he has 2 books to his credit. He has excelled in the field of academia, corporate, and development sectors. And he has a good handover experience, research experience, as well as in data analytics too. We have listened to Dr. Shyam Singh Inda, I think 3 to 4 times when we had the NAC webinar session. He's a wonderful speaker and a person who knows each and every aspect of the NAC RAF manual and has a wider knowledge and a very down-to-earth person. So we are very glad to have you today for this virtual session. On behalf of the organizing colleges, the patrons of this program, and the organizing team, we warmly welcome you to our midst. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation to join us in spite of your busy schedule. Before we hand over the mic to Dr. Shyam Singh Inda, there are a few instructions for the participants. We have already told, please mute your audio and video for better clarity. And once login, please enter your name and institution's name. And do not forget to fill the attendance form, which will be floated at the end of the session. And you are also requested to ask the doubts using the chat box. The resource person will address the queries after the session, depending upon the time frame. And everybody will be very keenly, wanting to know the certificate also. We would be dispatching the certificate within 15 days. Once again, we welcome Dr. Shyam Singh Inda. Sir, it's an honor to have you here on this virtual platform. Thank you so much. Over to Shyam, sir.
Yeah, thanks a lot, madam, for the brief introduction. I think someone is sharing out there the PPT.
Yes, sir. The sharing has stopped. Now probably you can start the sharing.
Yeah, the present now, sir. I just got it. Thank you, sir. Yeah. Once again, thank you, Dr. Shiva Joseph, madam, for such a beautiful introduction. I take this opportunity also to welcome all the participants who have came from different parts of India. And I think I must be one of the youngest to be participating and presenting also. So first of all, namaskar to all of the senior faculties, professors out there. And a brief namaskar to one of my mentor, Dr. Neena Jala also. So today, the topic that is internationalization of higher education in India, challenges and opportunities. I'll try to give a gist of it on the basis of the experience what I have, on the basis of being a part of NAC also and doing my academia also. And I will kindly request all the participants that whatever the queries they have, they may kindly ask at the end of the sessions. So straight away going into the presentation, the initial slide of my presentation, it has 3 questions, which I always ponder on. And I think for which everyone also wants to know the answer. Why, how, and when. Why internationalization of higher education? And how it has to be done, and when it has to be done. And you can take it vice versa also. When internationalization of higher education, how or why? So any sort of what is the order you take, the answer remains the same, but there is always a big question mark. Why? So straight away going into the slide, the first slide, this has always challenged me also. The context, why internationalization of higher education in India? As we are blessed with one of the highest, youngest population in the entire world. So it's on the vision of our Prime Minister also. If I think if any one of you remember that day before yesterday also he told that we have to think local, speak vocal, and act local. This was a beautiful speech by Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji also, because nowadays the competitive landscape has made such a challenging for the higher education, so that we have not to sustain locally also, but internationally also we have to sustain ourselves also. But keeping in mind the diversity of Indian higher education, we cannot entirely be international because our education system is so diversified, so that we cannot go into the internationalization of each and every system. For example, if we take the yoga or if we take Ayurveda, I think that's a pattern that is exclusively for India, where the people they are coming in India to learn out it. So we have to think locally also, but some standards of international should also be so that we become competitive. So to begin with, what actually this is a symbol which I have kept it.
Sir, just excuse me, please. May I please request Lingam sir to please switch off his mic? Lingam sir, are you able to? Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So please continue.
Thank you, sir. So to begin with, this arrow indicates what actually I mean by that internationalization of higher education in India. Where do we stand? Is it on the left side or the right side? The arrow what indicates? So the first important thing is that the sector is so complex that in the current scenario, what we actually mean by education, what actually the industry mean by the skills which they need, the sets of skills and abilities that is needed by the industry, whether it is actually what is being taught in the education sector or not. Because the education sector, they need people who have multiple skills with abilities. But is our education system competitive, or the education system is teaching the same skills and abilities which the industry is needed? Now, the second important thing is this thing, the significant expected growth. Everybody they think that we need a growth. Sustainability, I think that's a big dilemma which I always think. Growth should be sustainable. It should not be that a growth which comes, then it becomes stagnant. Stagnant leads to stagflation. Stagflation leads to then again depression. And then what it actually comes, then the economy goes down. So the growth should be in a linear where it has to be sustainable. But the current scenario, it's very difficult where you can expect a significant growth which is sustainable unless you have this internationalization in higher education, but giving due importance to the current education system of your own country also. It has to be a blend of both the things. Third, this is actually what depicts the education sector. The first, if you see the slide, the first top, there are colors which have indicated blue, green, yellow. This is actually what we say the schooling life. This happens to a student where we teach him so many subjects, geometry, civics, chemistry, the blend of everything. And he actually does not know what actually he means to study and what he wants to become. And when this happens in the school, the next picture that is depicted, that is a life. The colors get sweeter and we don't know what has happened because the education system that we had during our primary access, whether that was actually needed in the current scenario or did it has any relevance? That's a big question mark. So there's a lot of pressure on this thing. And when this leads to a lot of pressure and we are not able to handle this pressure, the ultimate effect goes to the stakeholders. Stakeholder here means state and society. And when we talk of society, they need the solutions. If we go vice versa also, society needs a solution to all the problems. Right now, COVID-19, we can take an example also. this leads to a lot of pressure. We can take an example of the government also. We need the growth also. The economical growth is also going down, and the sector is getting complex because of the lockdown also. There are so many restrictions. We cannot operate also. Employment is also getting down. The growth is also getting down. So this has a vice versa relation. That's why this arrow, there is, you see the demarcation was whether to start from where or end. This is complex. You can start from the left side also, you can start from the right side also. The answer is the same. Now the first, the uneven expansion. Why there is so much of uneven expansion when we talk of internationalization of higher education in Indian context? So the answer is, this is a picture with depict, if you go into the details, it talks of numbers in millions accessing different level of education, and I have taken a period from 1970 to 2050, and this is a projected growth. So if you go into the red mark, the red lines which are at the bottom, that means that there is no access to education. The one which is highlighted in the blue, that's a primary education. The second is a secondary, and the upper one, that's a tertiary sector. And the comparison is made between the two highest population country in the entire world, that is China and India. And if you go into the figures, when we see the figures in terms of India, it's very alarming. 1970 to 2050, you see the persons having access to education. That means they don't have access to education. Such a alarming figure out here. Primary is also less as compared to, you see, to China. By 2025, all the people, they will have access to education, but still by 2050, there will be so many people in India that won't have access to the education. Primary education, you see, the second and tertiary education also. But for us, what is good is a tertiary sector that will increase in the coming future, that is 2050, and this curve will get flattened and go down for the China. But what does it mean for India and China? So this demarcation will highlight it, what actually we mean. See, 2020, primary education would almost be accessible to entire China, but India still is lagging behind. This is the scenario which leads to uneven expansion between two different countries, and this has to be reduced. It has to be reduced when we have a policy that has multiple dimensions. And this is a shifting distribution of the global stock of people in tertiary education. I have made a demarcation from 2013 to 2030 anticipated. If you see that this tertiary education, I have taken the group of 25 to 34 years old, 2013 to 2030, and you see the significant percentage hold by China in the 2030, that is 17%, US 14%, Russian Federation 10%, and when you go in 2030 also, again China is leading 27%, US 8%, but you see the Russian Federation, it has gone down. Straight away from 10% goes down to 10. Rest is almost about same or bit down for other countries, but where is India? Here is India. 14% in 2013, but it will increase to 23%. I told you, we are blessed with having the highest population in the younger age. So that has to be meticulously, fruitfully, evenly used for the growth of entire India. Now the relevance of higher education, I think everyone, even the students, the teacher fraternity, the faculty fraternity, government, they have a question, the relevance of higher education system. So I try to answer with some few slides out here. I have demarcated with no and SI here. This no, that is the employer perspective which I have kept out here. And this SI, that is a faculty perspective. And what do employers feel? That the workers or the person whom they are hiring or they are trying to hire during the placement, they don't have the adequate skills. And what do we mean by adequate skills? Adequate skills which employers say that it should be relevant in the current scenario, it should not be outdated. It should be multiple skill, because we don't need any person who has one sort of skill. It has to be multiple skill, and a person should be in a position to adapt to a different scenario. I try to explain it with an example out here. See, no, and then yes. So what it says, 58% of the employers, what they think, that we don't have the capability, adequate skills to meet the current scenario, what actually they are seeking. But 72% of the educated, they think, no, whatever has been taught in the classroom or whatever there is in the syllabus, the modification is as per what is relevant. That's a big question mark for everyone also. This can only happen where we induct the industry person into the academia in terms of syllabus revision, in terms of calling them for webinars that is relevant to the current scenario also. We can take the current scenario right now. This online mode is a current scenario of education. And this lead to a hypothetical statement for me. If the labor market is so demanding that we need a combination of skills. Combination of skills means each person has to stand out different from the other person. He has to stand. And that should be provided by the education system. But what do employers say? No, the education system are not providing the skills which we need. It can be a vice versa. This is a hypothetical statement. Please don't take it personally. It's a hypothetical statement that can be answered also. This, what example I gave, this happens to a child in the school, whether it's a primary education or secondary education. We have so much of blending of subjects. We will learn history, health, biology, art, geometry, literature. So actually we are always in a confusion mode where we have to go. We always seek answer in our mind and we never get a proper answer because we are always having a bundle of ideas with bundle of sticks, and there is a lot of pressure on a child what actually he wants to do and how he wants to do. And what happens, the life becomes like this. All the colors of the life, it gets spoiled, it gets splitted, and we are wondering where actually we are standing. This happens in the current scenario also. Here I have kept an example of Bloom's taxonomy revised. I have purposely kept, why I have kept it, that I will tell you at the later on. So first what is creating. Creating means creating can be of an idea, creating can be of an innovation, creating can be of a syllabus revision also, creating can be leading to a change, but that needs evaluating. We can create an idea, we can innovate an idea, but evaluation is very important, whether that is actually needed in the current scenario or not. What is the relevance of creation of something? So when we try to do evaluation, we need to analyze, and when we do analyzing, that means we have to apply. Analyzing cannot be done actually all alone. It has to be analyzed. Analyze in terms of it provides a desirable, fruitful results. And when we apply, we understand it. So this is actually Bloom's taxonomy. But the question mark for me in the current scenario is very simple. What happens to the students? Creating, evaluating, analyzing, applying, understanding. Same old thing we are teaching to the students. So what happens? This is what actually happens. Is the student actually able to remember what has been taught to him in the class? What actually creation was? What was evaluation, analyzing, applying, understanding? I think the students, they would be the best person to answer these things because there has to be a lot of relevance between what is being taught, the way it is being taught, how it is applied, and how it is beneficial to students and to the stakeholders, especially the industry. These are the anticipated top 10 skills in 2020, which was in 2015. If you go through it, the sequencing has changed. What was considered to be as one of the top skills needed by any individual to have a good job industry has actually changed. From complex problem solving, it has remained same, but coordinating with others, straight away, it has gone to the 5th number. Critical thinking, it was into the 4th number, it has came now into the 2nd number. Now people want creativity, emotional intelligence, judgmental decision making, service orientation, negotiation, cognitive flexibility. Why this example has been set out here? The environment is so dynamic, it's changing so fast the skills which are relevant may be redundant in coming scenario, may be redundant maybe after 1 year, or maybe there has to be a more adequate development or enhancement of the skills. That's why this mentions case have been kept out personally out here. And this is the way the higher education system has to change. The syllabus has to change according to this, because this is the set of the skills which industry or maybe the sector which will be employing the highest number of children need in such a way that is relevant in the current scenario, and that leads to a fruitful results to the industry, because any industry that works is for profit making only. And this are the future graduates. They should have this 10 skills. And I have mentioned the source also. Everything for which I have made the slide, the sources are mentioned very meticulously. It's not my vision. It's entirely on the basis of source. One is sense making. Sense making, you should have an anticipation what actually would be needed in the future. And the relevance of such thing in the current scenario also. Social intelligence is needed. It's a must in the current scenario or maybe in the coming future also. Novel and adaptive thinking. Adaptive thinking means you have to adapt according to the current scenario, changing scenario, anticipating changes and the coming problems also. Cross-culture competency. And everybody knows that unless there is cross-culture competency, no one can progress. Every industry, whether it's local, global, they have to go through this cross-culture competency. And the successful institutions are those who go meticulously when they have this cross-culture competency. Computational thinking. I already told you, you should anticipate, but anticipation should be on the basis of some generalized information, on the basis of some generalized data. It cannot be done on the basis of just haphazardly. It has to have some relevance also. New media literacy. Now the COVID-19 has taught us a lot of things. New mode of online teaching has came. We are used to using Cisco, Zoom, now global, this Google Meet. We never heard of these terms, but actually now we are using it. Transdisciplinary. This is very important. Each and every subject, each and every occupation, there has to be a relevance. We are talking of interdisciplinary in subjects also. I talk of transdisciplinary in the occupation.